A very good morning to all of you. I'm Harish from the SBF team. Welcome to Formulating a Proactive Cyber Defense webinar, jointly organized by Microsoft, SGTech, and Singapore Business Federation. Before we begin with the program, we would like to share some house rules. No recording and sharing of the content outside of this webinar is allowed unless the information is available publicly. If you encounter any audio-visual issues, please check your connection. If necessary, you may leave and re-enter the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit them via the Q&A tab. To kick off this morning's webinar, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗿𝘁, Chair of SGTech Cybersecurity Chapter, to deliver the welcome address. 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗿𝘁, please.
Thank you, Harish. Hi, welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗿𝘁, the chair of SGTech Cybersecurity Chapter. My full-time role is as CEO of co-founder of 𝗦𝗫𝗡 Innovations. It's great to see you all, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today webinar on formulating a proactive cyber defense. In today's session, we will gain valuable insight from our speaker from Microsoft Technology. As today, our customers face challenges in enterprise environment where the amount of information have grown. Risks of insider threat are increasing, and the regulation continue to proliferate. Additionally, over 300 million people now working remotely. Data is being created, accessed, shared, and stored outside of the traditional borders of business. Microsoft Intelligent Compliance and Risk Management solutions are uniquely positioned to help customers to protect their data. To keep your organization secure, it's important to learn about the latest threats and how to defend against them. So today, to our old friends and existing members of SGTech, it's nice to have you with us again. And to our new friends who aren't familiar with SGTech, thus, let me give you a brief introduction. SGTech is a premium trade association set up to represent and champion the interests of the tech industry in Singapore. Within the rapidly evolving technology landscape, SGTech strives to create an ecosystem that anticipates trends and develop sustainable initiatives to strengthen and grow the industry. Currently, we have more than 1,000 members ranging from innovative startups, vibrant small and medium-sized enterprises to top NMCs, whom we are representing and articulating any technology industry concern to relevant authorities and stakeholders. SGTech strives to create an ecosystem that to strengthen the communities and help the ICT industry to grow. SGTech serves as an active voice for the tech industry by actively and responsibly advocating for change while remaining a trusted and respected partner of the government. SGTech contributes to tech industry growth and transformation through national programs and initiatives that drive and enhance the Singapore economies. There are three key roles that what we are doing: a business enabler, as neutral platform and aggregator for the tech industry. We have various platforms that create opportunities for our members. A responsible voice. We run sessions with various government industry to provide feedback and give suggestions on how to help the industry. For the industry insight, we provide knowledge and intel on updates and news so that the member will be more aware of the rapid changes that they could adapt it quickly. As to coordinate the needs of the subsector within the ICT space, we form industry chapters and committees to support the strategic emerging sector. We have classified our chapter into tech verticals and non-tech horizontal. Under the tech verticals, we have AI and high-performance computing chapter, cloud and data, cybersecurity, which are in today, and for non-tech horizontal, we have digital transformation chapter, Singapore Enterprise, and Smart Nation chapter. Companies that join SGTech as a member can choose which chapter they prefer to be involved in. Each chapter will plan activities, initiatives to engage their chapter members and the industry. SGTech also spin off committees that cater to the emerging industry needs. For example, 123 Jumpstart committees cater to young startup companies. Gaming and education technology are gaining traction. We have also formed these two committees to cater to the requirement. Other committees are Blockchain Committee, Data Center, Data Protection, Digital Trust, Government Procurement, SME Go Digital, Sustainability, and Talent and Capability Committees. New chapters and committees will be launched in response to the technology industry continue to grow and the needs. If you want to know more about SGTech, please write to our SGTech Secretariat at membership@sgtech.org.sg. I repeat, membership@sgtech.org.sg. I also like to thank our partners, Microsoft Singapore, SBF Singapore Business Federation, and SMF Singapore Manufacturing Federation for supporting this webinar. I hope that you'll find this information helpful for your organization. I wish you to have a fruitful webinar ahead. Thank you. And over to you, Harish.
Thank you, Dutch, for the well-rounded welcome address. We shall now dive deeper into this morning's program with Mr. Richard Koh, Chief Technology Officer of Microsoft Singapore, to take us through formulating a proactive cyber defense. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Harish. And first of all, thanks for having Microsoft here at this forum and the partnership. Thank you, Dutch, for the partnership with the SGTech, as well as the support from the Singapore Business Federation, as well as also the Singapore Manufacturing Federation as well. I think this is a great opportunity. As we all know, cybersecurity, it's a very big and hot topic, but it's not going to go out of fashion anytime soon. This is something that I think perennially will be an area that a lot of both decision makers at organizations as well as board of directors that have line of sight and really big concerns on the cyber readiness of any organizations for that matter. So I want to really share with you in the next, I would say maybe 18 to 20 minutes, a little bit about the cyber threat landscape itself. I think it is always useful to have a sense of what's going on in this space and get a sense of how this landscape is evolving. As you think about formulating that proactive cyber defense itself, it's really good to understand what it means from a evolution standpoint. And what I'll quickly take everybody through is this whole, I would say, report that at Microsoft, we have many organizations across the organizations that have collaborated and put together a wealth of information here. So I think it's really, really cool when we think about just the broad landscape of what this covers. But at the same time, I think it's also a very big challenge as organizations really think about how they can keep up with a lot of the challenges in this space. I won't drain through all of these topics, and later on in my presentation, I'll point to the audience here a resource where you can find more information and more detail about this report itself. But maybe let me just dive through a little. I'll cherry pick a few topics from this report itself and give you a sense of some of the things that's going on here. And I think it's no news to say that over the past year itself, we've seen cybercrime, the cybercrime economy has really risen, and I think we have also seeing that the cyber attack landscape is becoming increasingly sophisticated. So, and the way we think about it at Microsoft, it's that how do we figure out leveraging our global footprint as probably one of the largest technology provider, as well as a cybersecurity company, really looking through things like, for example, our 24 trillion signals that we're processing every day, that looks at potential, indicators of attack, compromise, things like that. And this is through a lot of the work that we are doing, not just with our security products itself, but also all the threat intelligence that our teams are gathering from the signals that we can see around the world itself. Now, as you think about this, and as we talk about cybercrime itself, I think this is something that is really challenging when you think about the growing threats itself. Whether is it a threat to national security, all the sectors are not spared from some of these attacks, and they're also increasingly becoming successful. I think literally just in the last couple of days, I think you've seen the news about how bank scams are going on as well, and some of these challenges that financial services industry has to keep up as the attackers get a lot more sophisticated in the way they can trick, for example, users to be able to give up their credentials, their one-time passwords, and things like that. And when we see some of these extortions that's going on and ransomware, I think it helps to understand what that economics is around in this space. And at the same time, what are the efforts that a lot of us, right, to come together, whether is it the private sector, law enforcement, government agencies, this is really necessary to come together. Now, I think you've heard many people say that, cybersecurity is a team sport. It's not one single company, it's not one single organization or government agency that's able to take that. We have to come together to be able to do that. And I think when you look at this chart itself, just the complexity that is in this space and the economics that's in this space, it gives a lot of incentives to the cyber criminals to take advantage of this particular landscape itself. Now, we're also seeing quite a fair bit of data and signals in this space, and in the report itself. And in the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, certainly we see that ransomware as a service, unfortunately, has also grown quite a fair bit. And perhaps one recent example, just about a year ago, when the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack back in May 2021, it also drew a lot of public attention. And our detection and response team, engagement data shows that, I would say 3 of the most targeted sectors were like consumer, financials, and manufacturing. So you can see the trends that's also happening when you encounter the news as well. Now, a little part about I want to pick up from this section of the report is also things around AI and machine learning as well. I think while the world moves ahead in terms of being an AI first company, looking at how to leverage the goodness of artificial intelligence and machine learning into their daily operations itself, we're also seeing things like adversarial machine learning type of attacks as well, where the attacker can compromise machine learning models, where they contaminate, for example, the training phase of machine learning systems to kind of mess with the results a little bit. So these are some of the challenges, if you will. And I think as your organization think about not just building up your cyber defenses, it's also thinking about different aspects of your business, where there are, let's say, departments and organizations looking at using an AI and ML for their business, optimization or digital transformation as well. But at the same time, really thinking about some of the security concerns in this space. Now, one very interesting thing in this particular report is around nation-state threats, and this is something that at Microsoft we are tracking and reporting these nation-state threats as well. As maybe perhaps some of you might know, during I would say before the Russian and Ukraine conflict war that was going on, Microsoft was actually a very big participant of assisting the Ukrainian government, the UN, the US federal government, all of that in helping the Ukrainian government to help them defend their digital infrastructure, if you will. So we think about this as a big tech company, our responsibility to be able to assist governments to defend their civilian targets and digital infrastructure itself. I think this is a very important responsibility that we as a company has really think about how we can assist many governments around the world to be able to defend against some of this malicious nation-state sponsored type of attacks as well. Now, if I go on to, let's say, the next slide itself, it will give you a sense of some of the attackers that we're tracking, and you see that code names that comes off the periodic table. This is what we use to track the different nation-state attackers, and typically kind of their style, their ways of what are they focused on in terms of their attacks, and the kind of objectives that they are trying to get to itself. So we cite some examples. We give some deeper view into the attack targets, the techniques, the analysis of their motivations as well. And I think it will be good to kind of get an up level of knowledge in this space. And here on this slide, you get a sense of the sample of what you're seeing. And I think just looking at whether is it a country distribution, the kind of targeted sectors, and also the most active nation states itself, you get a sense of where and which countries and what kind of sectors that some of these criminal groups are targeting. Now, well, I'll just highlight one that's kind of closer to our geographical area here in North Korea, for example. The nation state itself, some of the state-sponsored attack, the actors themselves, very, very sophisticated in terms of Bitcoin theft, for example, and the social engineering techniques that they're using as well. Very focused on, for example, security researchers in this particular space. Now, let me touch on a little bit around things like supply chain, the Internet of Things, and also operational technology security itself. Again, this is one of those areas that if you are an organization that are running quite a fair bit of industrial machines or manufacturing machines, for example, these also can be areas or potential targets that some of these cyber criminals may be going for as well. And because of the proliferation of a lot of IoT device, I'm sure many of us sitting here, we all have some form of Wi-Fi router at home, smart TVs, things like that. And the attack surface has unfortunately become bigger. I think in many ways, we also have to really think about some of these areas where the traditional security approach hasn't been focused on, and how we as an organization, or we collectively as an industry, have that kind of interactions and discussion on how we can level up the security in this particular space itself. And And I think at the same time, SolarWinds, if all of y'all remember some of these attacks, supply chain in the software ecosystem is kind of level up, brought forward to the front of many organizations' consciousness when it comes to cybersecurity. How implicit trust in the software supply chain cannot be taken for granted. And there are many efforts going on around in the industry, including here at Microsoft, to think about how we can help organizations really level up when they think about software supply chain, for example. And this relates all to whether is it monitoring and detections, the kind of security validations as software are being built and being updated to our customers. And similarly with many other organizations as well. I'll just show you a quick example here on how an attacker can get into an enterprise through IoT, for example. And the interesting thing is that sometimes these actually takes place from the home of a particular employee or maybe a set of employees. And then really kind of move their way over to the employees, let's say work assets, for example, a work laptop or something like that. And then when they go back into the factory itself, how does the payload then gets injected into, let's say, for example, an OT machines. So I think the sophistication is there, but we shouldn't fear it in that sense. I think the key thing is that just being more knowledgeable about some of the ways that some of these let's say devices can get compromised gives us that knowledge to say, okay, how do we leverage some of the next generation tools, intelligence security tools, to be able to then protect against that. As I'm sure a lot of the folks here in this webinar probably know a lot of IT devices or IoT devices where default passwords are still sticking around for too long a time, and just that the Microsoft sensor network itself, we can see some of the raw data on these type of attacks and the passwords in use. And this is just a sample of the password data that we collected. And just unsurprisingly, right, we keep seeing some of these, time and time again, people don't change their passwords, and this is where things can get compromised. Now, let me just touch on a little bit on hybrid workforce. Certainly, the past 2 years of COVID-19 has forced many of us to adopt a hybrid working style here in Singapore. Fortunately, we are all going back to the office itself. But I think many leaders and certainly in the news are acknowledging that the hybrid work environment is very durable and it's going to be here to stay. And many workplaces will be in a hybrid mode for the most part. And even the workforce of the next generation are also choosing with their feet the kind of organizations that they want to join if the organizations provide hybrid remote working type of options as well. But what that means is that just from a, let's say, security standpoint, I think it is still important to think about how that workforce security, where it's hybrid, these are some of the things that still matters, right? Email compromise is still continuing to be a big threat vector itself. And a lot of the adversaries for organizations are also targeting a lot of on-premises systems as well. So I think moving infrastructure to the cloud where security is much more difficult to penetrate, I think that is something that a lot of organizations should be seeing as well. Now, the basics matters. So just like to emphasize on that point, whether it's patching, applying updates, turning on MFA. These are some of the basic stuff that all organizations should really should really invest time in doing quickly, that reduces your opportunity for compromise right away. Now, I just want to show you some of the telemetry we collected at Microsoft, because we're a hybrid workforce right now. And you can just see just from a trend of employees entering Microsoft buildings. And you see that sharp drop, 2+ years ago when the pandemic hit, and really looking at the amount that's going up. And you still see a large amount of us employees working remotely from our home, just like today. Now, one of the things is that as we look across our infrastructure, whether is it things like Azure Firewall or things like that, certainly we can see the kind of network threats that's also coming, that's also being tested against some of our infrastructure as well. So I think when you get knowledgeable about the space, it's always useful how you will work with your cybersecurity teams on securing, let's say, for example, your cloud infrastructure, as well as your on-prem infrastructure, your devices, your data, your employees' identities, for example. Some other developments that took place, I would say this is more last year-ish. It's also the collaboration with 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗍 on that textile matrix, if you will, and this is also coming from our Azure security team. And at the same time, I think the key thing is that as we think about moving applications to the cloud itself, how does the workforce get a lot more trained and upskill to be able to do that? And so when I talked about the workforce, I think this whole notion around people becomes very important. I think training, upskilling in this space, and having a growth mindset around in this space is very important. I think the old mentality around cybersecurity is, frankly, is no longer viable. It's something that has to change, because just the whole entire threat landscape has really evolved. So as responsible organization and leaders of our organizations, we really need to think about how we can shift and evolve to a new, different paradigm. But I think the key thing is it always starts with the people themselves. I know I'm kind of running up against time, so I'll just quickly run through the rest and give you a link to the resource itself. This information is also another threat vector. A lot of times we are all on social media, we are on chat groups, and information get forwarded around. And I think we saw this rise during the COVID-19 pandemic itself. And certainly at Microsoft, we also look at things that let's say threats that happened, for example, in election campaigns. Now, I will want to end off with some quick highlights around actionable insights itself. I think when you think about the paradigm shifts in this space, it's really, I would say, really designing the whole security and productivity experience with the notion of digital empathy. Not something that you want to put into reducing the productivity of your employee base, but really something that can be enhanced in many ways and make it as easy as possible, so that you don't reduce the productivity with, let's say, for example, your cybersecurity tool itself. Zero trust, I'm sure many of you have heard that term itself. I think from a principle perspective, it's good to always deep into that. What are the areas around zero trust that your organizations can think about, whether is it across identity, data, infrastructure, devices, all of that. And that would be a very good starting point. I know that organizations are also having to shift their mindsets when it comes to this area itself. Now, and I think I want to point out to the fourth part, the fourth point here. The resilience of your businesses, it's really tied to your cyber readiness, security, resilience itself. And I think we have heard of situations where businesses literally get taken down or really get compromised severely because of whether weakened or lack of cyber hygiene or maybe a design of their cybersecurity that's really in the legacy world itself. And attackers have been able to take advantage of that weaknesses and be able to compromise the business. And businesses have actually closed because of that as well. So I think it's something that you want to think about. And because the cybersecurity landscape really cuts across many different areas of your organizations, like I said, identity, devices, data, infrastructure, all of that. I think the greater focus on integrated security, that fifth point on this slide here, is becoming more and more important, not just with siloed type of, let's say, application itself. So what is best in integration? It's also something to really think about and frankly invest in as well. Now, I would let's say, sorry, I just clicked ahead a little bit too fast. So I think when we collaborate with organizations like SGTech, with SBF, SMF here in Singapore and CSA as well, I think digital transformation and organization is certainly pushing at a very fast pace, but certainly the cybersecurity transformation needs to happen alongside it as well, and think of it as an enabler for business resilience as we think about evolving to the new kind of future of work, if you will. So I think it's important to acknowledge that and not think of it just as a chore, but really thinking of it as a key enabler and a differentiator. So one of the things I like to call out is, for example, our collaboration with CSA around the Cyber Trust Mark Essentials Trust Mark type of effort itself. And those are the kind of efforts that I think broadly applies to the whole Singapore ecosystems of businesses of different sizes. And I certainly encourage you to take advantage of that and do more research into that and see how you can empower your organizations up level to a better cybersecurity posture from that. Okay. I would probably, kind of quickly flash through to this slide. I think it is something that is fairly common sense. I would say a lot of it is taking the effort to make sure that whether is it multi-factor authentication, least privilege access, all that different approach in making the bar higher and harder for the cyber criminals to be able to attack your organization or your infrastructure or your employee devices itself. I think that is always key in terms of the investment of your time and effort itself. Last but not least, this is, if you think about all this research and information, it's a very rich amount of information. These are all the different teams inside Microsoft who has contributed to it. So if you want to take some time to download the report, here's the URL, and I guess we're all still scanning QR code. So here's a QR code for you to go to the site itself and download a copy of the report itself. So I know I am at time, and hopefully this has been useful in terms of sharing with you how at Microsoft we see the landscape itself. And I'll hand it over back to Harish, and I guess we'll jump into the Q&A section. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Richard, for the insightful sharing. I'm sure there are a lot of questions out there that our attendees do have for this morning. In fact, up to this moment, we've also had some attendees streaming in. So just to let everyone know that we are opening the Q&A session right now. To moderate this session, I would like to invite Mr. Breyvan Tan, co-opted executive committee member of SGTech Cybersecurity Chapter. Also joining this session, may we invite Richard 𝗦𝗬𝗿𝗀𝗫 and Ms. Alison Heng, Sales Lead of Security Solutions from Microsoft Singapore. Over to you, Breyvan.
Thank you very much, Haras. Right, and a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. So, and also welcome back, Richard and Alison from Microsoft. And Richard, thank you very much for your insightful presentations this morning. Right, I would say we are living quite in a different world these days. Right, so I'm sure our audiences is going to benefit much from your presentations today, as well as the representing their organizations. There will be something that I'm sure they will bring back today from Microsoft as a solutions to their organizations. And hopefully, all right, some of these will bring us to a safer world, all right, for the company representing coming to the presentation this morning. So while we're waiting for more questions from the audience, let me kick off with one that I have in mind while I actually sit through your presentations. As you mentioned in your presentations, cyber threat pose a big challenge for organizations these days, right? And from your summary reports, and I would like to quote that some of the actionable items, such as good practices in cyber hygiene, and implement architecture that support principles of zero trust, is some of the key points towards minimizing the impact of the threats. So with that, I would like to pose these questions for yourself to share with the audience that how does Microsoft helps organizations better understand and appreciate the concept of zero trust?
Okay, Breyvan, thanks for that question. I think that's a great question. Like I kind of mentioned earlier itself, cyber criminals or nation state attackers, they are very sophisticated. They're not just going after one aspect of an organization. So when I say one aspect, could it be their cloud infrastructure? Could it be their on-premises systems or devices? In fact, they're going after all of them. And I think having a integrated security type of approach and thinking is important. And this cuts across really your data that's in the cloud, the devices that your employees are using to, let's say, the identities itself that the employees are using. And when we think about zero trust itself, it's really a way of thinking about how sessions that comes from your devices or let's say your application, when they are logging in and performing certain transactions, how do you make sure that the least amount of privilege is being set, let's say for that application, for that device, for that employee, depending on their profile, and limiting that to just what's necessary to get done. And that's just not just one thing itself, right? I think this is where the intelligence starts to come in as well, where, for example, if you are thinking about, let's say, the threat intelligence that is coming from your technology vendors, how are they integrating that threat intelligence into their products so that, for example, if your employees' identity, their email addresses have been compromised and they are being sold on the dark web, for example, how does the company, let's say, be able to scan the dark web and then bring some of this intelligence into the identity infrastructure and be able to help the organization to say, hey, you know what? I think you've got, 2 or 3 identities that are being compromised and being sold on the dark web. You might want to perform some more investigations into these 2 or 3 whether they are machine identities or employee identities. So I think we collectively want to be able to step back a little bit and then look at all the different factors that an attacker can come in at. And they'll not just come in through one, they'll sometimes come in through all of it and really test the organization's resilience. So from a zero trust perspective and an integrated security perspective, I think that's a very, very important aspect for organizations to think about. Because sometimes in my interactions with organizations, they'll just get very focused onto, let's say, device security, and then they go deep into that. But you have to kind of span across, data and cloud infrastructure and on-premises and your identities and your devices and everything. And then that gives you a much more comprehensive cybersecurity posture.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that answer is so elaborative, and it kind of lead me to a couple of other questions. But what I can draw from your answer as a summary, Microsoft actually helps your customers to make them be more proactive in securing their information assets and their data from all angles, rather than a very dedicated one-directional way of focusing, which I think many of the organizations these days, something similar to my organization also, when we start talking about cybersecurity, the first impression we have is, let's buy some hardware, right? As you mentioned about device security, that's not just it. There's so much more, and it's way beyond our capacity to really understand. And that's why engaging experts from like Microsoft, that gives us a lot more comfort and something to start conversation with, isn't it? Right, rather than just buying some things from challengers, so to speak. Yeah. So with that, you also mentioned some services that is available via cloud, and a lot of company leveraging of saving their data on cloud. And as part of your presentation, you also mentioned about the remote workforce that we are having these days. And certainly, I don't think we are going back anymore to pre-COVID situations, and we are definitely embracing this new working environment. So with such kind of working environments where companies start to realize, hey, maybe instead of investing on hardware, probably we look at solution on cloud. All right. So in a way, instead of developing our own infrastructure, maybe we can leverage more on cloud. But the fear factor is always there, all right, because the sovereignty is not within our control. That's the main feeling. And what is your view in that? That is, should company explore more cloud security solutions? Is that safer, or is that not actually? What's your view?
Great question, Breyvan. I think I've been in the cloud space for a long time, so I think some of the folks over here probably know that I started my Microsoft career actually in Redmond as part of the product team that built Office 365 many years ago, and I think a big part of this is the myth that we need to bust, that really that in the cloud itself that organization loses control. No, that's not true. A lot of any good cloud service providers would put quite a fair bit of whether it's data or identities or security type of control in the hands of the customer, just like we do when we think about building our products and services for our customers. How we think about the kind of controls, fine-grained type of controls that we put into the hands of the administrators, for example. And this shared responsibility model itself, I think when you draw a parallel to what has happened with, let's say, for example, power. Today, we don't run power generators in our homes or in our buildings in that sense. But for the most part, we just get the power through a power socket, if you will. And when you think about the levels of things like, you mentioned about data sovereignty and things like that as well. Again, interact with your cloud service providers, certainly understand the terms and conditions and the kind of let's say law enforcement's requests for data, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times you'd be surprised that actually from a sovereignty perspective, the customers do have a lot of control itself. So I want to bust that myth. I think sometimes there's always the old mindset and the fixed mindset that, oh, I lose complete control when I go to the cloud itself. That's absolutely not true. And I think because the cloud infrastructure is something that's across many different organizations, different parts of the world, the shared intelligence that we have and other players would have around, let's say, cyber threat intelligence get a lot richer. And this is no one single organization can do by themselves on premises. It's just physically impossible, right? But with these kind of aggregated threat intelligence, we have been able to help protect our customers much more at scale than any kind of architectural setup that's even possible itself. So I think a lot of it is around mindsets rather than the technology itself. So having approaching such, let's say, transformation, such kind of effort with a growth mindset, with curiosity to learn, will help us to level up and not get fixed in the old mindset and old ways of doing things and not progress itself. So I think that's very important. I think for the most part, I think it starts with the people. That's key, and love to engage with all the folks out here on some of these aspects as well.
Great. That's wonderful, because I think one key words I hear from you, it strikes me, that is the word of control, because as we embrace ourselves to the cloud services, there are so many of them, and there are so many different kind of services that a company already started to unknowingly, right, using bits and pieces. And as they start gathering these and realize, going back to your first questions, the answer to your first question, that is, threats come from everywhere. So being a business owner, I don't think that they have that much time to worry about this, and yet to have control over all the deployments of services on cloud. And certainly leaving it to the experts will probably be the key solution to them. All right, so for anyone from the audiences, if you're exploring more service on cloud, and you hope that it's going to be secure for you, and I think going to Microsoft, getting their consultancy services on this area become a call, because they are the expert in this area, right? And of course, with Richards, that is like having your credential built up on this. We certainly have to listen to you, all right? In that sense. And okay, in fact, certainly for everyone who representing their company or their organizations, whenever we explore certain solutions and options, we often come to a point that is, okay, what does it cost for us? Because when we say something that is, leave it to the experts, and the word experts always fear people, all right? The word consultants always fear people, because it leads to, oh, must be expensive. So from that aspect, so I'm just I'm not sure, is it going to be Alison's to answer these questions, or Richard? But for a business, do you think investing in securing their data and their IP, all right, or any of their information assets, is a kind of business enabler move, or do you think that it's just purely a cost to the business?
Okay.
Would it be the lady?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let me take it. I think this is definitely a business decision, right? As to whether is it a business enabler or a cost to the organization. Now some organizations, when they are managing very highly confidential data, they may decide to put probably the workload entirely on-prem. And then again, with that, then you have to build a zero trust strategy to build a robust security around the infrastructures, network, application that your guys are protecting. Now, but there are also organizations that actually leverage on the cloud. Now, when we talk about cloud service provider, right, they have spent billions of dollars building the cloud. So it's not about matter of whether it's secure or not, right? It's more of making sure that the people accessing your data in the cloud that you're hosting in the CSP, cloud solution provider, whether do they know how to manage their data, right? So I guess we will definitely have to build again, look into the people, the process, the technology that you have to be considering whenever you go to embark a cloud strategy here. So Microsoft itself, we do have capabilities that already built around it and enable the business to encapsulate controls around the data. And we are helping this in terms to support the zero trust architecture within the cloud as well. Now, just for your information, within Microsoft, we have actually embarked on a zero trust journey a few years back. And we are still evolving this as we speak here, right? So the technology that we are building on and the controls that we're putting in place is far more than what you think that the organization feels that the data security is, whether is it secure or not. So of course you definitely have to trust the service provider here, right? So I strongly think that Microsoft as well is able to manage multiple resources from the cloud service provider. Now, so it also helps you in terms of easing the operation if you are embarking on multiple cloud provider here. So it will be very crucial for you to be able to think that, whether is it a cost to organization or are you in fact doing operational cost saving here or people process. So you need to be able to think around people, process, and technology around this, rather than is it a cost to the organization? That's what I've thought. Yeah.
So,
I see.
So
Yes.
and Breyvan, if I may just add on itself, right? In the interaction, I mean, Alison said it right. I think in a lot of interactions I've had with different organization itself, I think again sometimes I always like to tap on the mindset part of it. Some would say, oh, it's just the cost of doing business, right? But I think if you inspect on that thinking a little bit more and say, hey, if I put in this cost of shoring up my cyber defenses and resilience, I'm also at the same time establishing trust in the marketplace, in the industry, with my customers, with my partners. That actually becomes a real business enabler, right? That becomes an attraction to other business partners as well, because they say, you know what, this organization really takes their security seriously. I would like to do business with them. Or if these organizations are kind of haphazard and not really thinking about their cybersecurity, should I be bringing my business to them? I think just look at the current landscape of all the banking scams itself. Just your interactions with your friends and family, right? Images and perception forms around that as well. Which bank is more secure and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's the let's say truth of the landscape itself. So I think investment into your cyber defense can really truly become a business enabler and a differentiator for the business as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard and Alison. I think you definitely enlightened me on something. There is before this, when you talk about cybersecurity, I know that is something that we have to invest in. But of course, now with your answers, it kind of clarified, because if I were to just put down into key points, as Alison mentioned, high confidential data, it strikes me because I think just recently me and my friends were just talking about something like the actual ingredients or the recipe of Coca-Cola, something that nobody knows for hundreds of years. If company has some confidential data like such, it's so important for them to protect it. And for a matter of fact, also that is company these days doesn't work in solo, which is they will be somehow part of a supply chain. So as they are working with their supplier and they are down in line, could be the consumer themselves, I think they do not only hold the responsibility to protect data for themselves, they're actually protecting the data and information for their clients, for their customers, for their supplier, as part of the whole 360 play, right? So in that, it still comes back to the word trust is key, and protecting information somehow is not only a choice, it's no longer a choice. It becomes crucial to be able to be a value partner, as what Richard rightfully pointed out. So it looks like it's not even a consideration that we should or we should not. It's more like we should, but maybe where do we start? How do we start? And of course, if we talk about where we start, how we start, is so much that we need to look at. Maybe putting this back to the expert, as I mentioned earlier, will still be the best choice. And one quick and simple question: is Microsoft solution expensive, or is it affordable?
Well, Microsoft security solution is built on trust and sustainability for your customers. So yeah, we will definitely we will be able to support all kinds of network and infrastructure that you have. Yes.
Right. Well, I'm sure that is Microsoft will have done your evaluation on the costing factor, and there are so many customers who jump on board, and I'm certain that your package has its own value propositions. So I suppose this is probably something that is the audiences. I would advise that is, if you have something in your mind, right? I think these are the best people that you could just engage them right now or from now onwards. Speak to them. All right. I believe you guys don't charge for consultations, right?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
And Breyvan, I think it's a good point. From our perspective, is that having more of these conversations, as especially, it's not just a customer partners kind of viewpoint, because let's say, for example, we have managed security service providers as well as our partners. There are some system integrated partners of our products as well. I think leveling up the knowledge as an industry, as an ecosystem, is one of the most key thing in itself. And whether is it when it comes to, let's say, pricing of our products and services, yeah, certainly this is all cap reasonable. I think we do a lot of research in terms of how some of these pricing levels all work itself. But I think the key thing is that understanding the ongoing value of it. And I think this is where Microsoft wants to always stay focused on. Like when we think about our mission at a company and how we are empowering people and organizations and to achieve more here in cybersecurity, we think of it holistically from an integrated security perspective. So not just a individual security product perspective, but really the best in integration, if you will. And I think this is the journey that we work through a lot with, from the smallest of SMEs all the way to the largest of organizations on the planet. So I think the breadth of I would say, let's say, experiences, the integrated threat intelligence that we bring into our products and services is certainly something for a lot of the organizations here to consider. But at the same time, we don't claim to have all the knowledge in this space. We are still learning in this space, and engagement with organizations like yours, for example, SGTech, with a different organization like Singapore Business Federation, the manufacturing sector itself. Understanding that concern helps us to also build our integrated security products and services even better. So this is an evolving landscape. It's not install this and you're done. Certainly it's going to be a journey for a lot of us, including Microsoft ourselves.
Yeah, like I said before, right, Breyvan, Microsoft also embarked on the Zero Trust journey a few years back. Then really our goal is to help every organization to strengthen their security capabilities with the lesson that we have learned ourselves through through the years that we have actually been going through. Yeah. So, and on top of that, beyond just Microsoft's solution itself, it's the threat intelligence that we feel that is definitely going to help the customers in the long run. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. In fact, really, Richard, you have a foresight of my next questions. Somehow you just answered it. So essentially, I'm just thinking for SME in Singapore, I mean, how easy is it for them to implement something? And as you mentioned, in summary, basically, you are bringing the entire intelligence of what Microsoft have, protecting its own, all right, as what Alison said. You yourself has went through this a couple of years back, practicing this zero trust, and you are bringing the same intelligence in, of course, an affordable package, all right, for all the customers in Singapore. So I think that is really great. So in the interest of time, so I think we have more or less covered the questions from the audience also. And as I mentioned, it doesn't stop here because this is where it started everything, right? So everyone from the audiences, you are certainly welcome to engage anyone from Microsoft. And of course, you could also approach SBF if you like to know, Richard's contact or Alison's contact. Now, of course, this is not going to be their personal contact, because we treasure personal data privacy. And approach them, find out more, because what Microsoft have for you is not a Godzilla kind of investment. We're talking about a cloud-based, all right, a very friendly kickstart of solutions, as we have shared here, and they're solving a 360 cyber solutions for you, because we are not talking about security of buying a hardware or subscribing an antivirus anymore. This is way beyond that, because the threats that we are facing is immersing, and it's crazy. So I'm also feeling the pressure from my own company myself, and just being here today, it helps me clarify some of the thoughts, and I think I would like to engage both Alison and Richard myself a lot more moving forward also, right? So with that, I would like to hand this back over to Haresh, but just right before that, anything more, Richard, Alison, you would like to add on?
Perhaps just maybe one last point itself. I think,
sure.
A few key points. Look, cybersecurity is a team sport, so it's not just an IT department kind of thing. It's really thinking about how you're engaging across the businesses. Your leaders in the organization really needs to be well versed and well aware about this. Your board of directors as well. This is becoming a board level type of responsibility. The people, process, technology aspect of it cannot be understated. It's not just technology solving the problem. It's the people, it's the process. So, while we are a technology provider, we're always emphasizing in this space that, hey, when we ship the cloud services and all the good security products to our customers, really the people needs to get upskill and really get knowledgeable about this space. The processes are established when, let's say, for example, if and when cyber incidents happen, everybody know what to do next, and how to recover from a particular incident itself. So adoption it's really, really key, and learning of it's really key, and getting all of that in place. So it's, like I said, it's a journey. It's not necessarily something that you just plonk in, install, and you're done. So I think the engagements across your whole entire organization and externally of the ecosystems here as well is crucially important.
Right, great. Thank you. To summarize that for the audience, I think all the audiences has heard this. This is a key takeaways from Microsoft team. And once again, feel free to contact them. All right, they're here for you. And thank you very much. So back to you, Haresh.
Once again, our warm appreciation goes out to Richard, Alison, Breyvan, and Dutch for taking us through a rather enriching morning on cybersecurity. We would appreciate if you could also scan this QR code, which I'm going to share with you. At the meantime, I've also shared a link in this page that you would have seen. So right now, there's a QR code that you could scan to let us know your thought and feedback of today's program. And once again, we thank you and wish you a successful transformation and stay cyber secured. Also, do keep the connections and do keep the conversations going on cybersecurity. We'd be most happy to take any further questions that you may wish to share with us via email or in any other forms. Thank you and have a great lunch ahead.
Thank you.